economy provides.
Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Mr Speaker, in that extraordinary theatrical performance, the member who's just resumed his seat accused our side of the House of being a bit loose with the facts. He then rapidly promoted Kim Il-sung to be the leader of South Korea. That'll come as a bit of a shock. That will come as a bit of a shock to many, many people living in that country. And then in a bit of a revival of the mother of all budgets, referred to his colleague Maurice Williamson as Maurice Richardson. I think it's a bit rich for that member to tell us we're a bit loose with the facts. He can't even remember his own colleagues' names, Mr Speaker. I'm very pleased to be speaking in this debate in support of the amendment of David Cunliffe to the Prime Minister's statement, which reads, "This House expresses no confidence in this national-led government because New Zealand has become more and more divided, because those in the middle are struggling and because the poor are going backwards." And the facts speak for themselves on that amendment. That amendment is absolutely accurate and every member of the National Party knows it. They can come into this House and spin their lines as often as they like, but the facts will in the end get in the way of their story. And the reason that will happen is because outside this House, people are living their lives and they know how their lives are. They know when they hear John Key speak that he is arrogant and he is out of touch with the reality of how hard they work and how little they earn compared to the effort that they put into their job. I remember Bill English saying at the time that he cut the tax for the highest income earners in New Zealand. I remember him saying if people aren't earning enough money, they should work harder. That is an example of the arrogance of the National Party and how out of touch they are with many, many New Zealanders who work much harder, frankly, than many people in this House and who can't get enough money as part of their wage or salary to give their families the opportunities that many of us have just taken for granted. The opportunities to get a higher education, the opportunities to get into a career, in a job, in a trade that is challenging and satisfying, that gives you the value in your wage packet comparable to what you are putting into our economy. Many people have had that opportunity taken away from them by the national-led government. So they are out of touch with many, many New Zealanders, and that's where the truth will come to bite them, because those are the New Zealanders who choose our government, who later on this year, whether it's September, October or November, will cast their ballot in favour of the party that they know represents their voice and understands their lives. And that certainly is not National, and I know it is Labour. Labour wants an economy that works for all New Zealanders. We do have growing inequality in New Zealand for retired people, for middle income earners, for young families. It's now harder and harder for them to pay their bills and live a quality life. They don't want to go to Hawaii for a holiday necessarily. You know, that would probably be icing on the cake. What they'd like is at least one layer of the cake, one slice of it, to give their life some added value, to have some good times and not just have every day enough to get by, or perhaps not even that much. And at the same time, they're seeing people on really high incomes getting massive pay increases and bonuses. That doesn't equate to a fair or a just society. In New Zealand, we used to be so proud of so many things. We used to be so proud of being an egalitarian society where it didn't matter where you were born or what state your family was in at the time. You would have access to early childhood education, you would have access to a high quality local school, a public education system, and you would be able to afford to go to a polytechnic or a university and have a really good chance at a decent job in the future. For many people, that is just off their menu now. This national-led government has taken that chance away for so many people, that opportunity for everyone to be the best they possibly can because of the collective services that we provide them, whether it's through the education system, whether it's through the health system, or whether it's through social housing. Those supports give people the chance to give back to their country everything that they are capable of, and that's the opportunity that is gone. One of the other things that New Zealanders feel very passionate and proud about is our environment. I've just been appalled at the lack of passion from the National Party for anything in the environmental space. We used to boast about our clean, green image, and John Key even dissed that. He said, forget about that, it's not real, it's just a marketing slogan. He told the world that we didn't have a clean, green country, that it was just a marketing slogan. And actually, it's getting closer and closer to the truth. We have seen our water quality standards degraded. We have seen the lack of protection of our national parks. We nearly had mining in our most precious parts of the country. If it wasn't for 40,000 Aucklanders who cared passionately about Great Barrier and Coromandel, that mining in the most precious parts of New Zealand would have gone ahead, thank goodness, that the government listened at just that single time to the voices of New Zealanders. But we've also seen in the areas of the Resource Management Act, complete undermining of the principles of that legislation, in the EEZ changes, in the lack of passion and commitment, and certainly lack of action from the Minister of Fisheries and the Minister of Conservation for protection of the Maui's dolphins. Mr Speaker, there are 55 Maui's dolphins left, not just around New Zealand, only around New Zealand, but on the planet. And yet this government has failed to take any decisive action in order to protect that species. I think that is a disgrace. What will happen to the New Zealand reputation that we have been so proud of in the past if this government oversees the extinction of that species? It is a disgrace. It is so irresponsible, it's so arrogant, and it's so out of keeping with the pride and passion that New Zealanders have in their society and in our environment. Labour's been putting up some good alternatives, and I was delighted to see David Cunliffe's first announcement, and it will be the first of many this year, his first announcement being a strong commitment to New Zealanders who have young families. That is a very good place to start, and it was very appropriately named Best Start because that's what Labour wants to give every child that's born in New Zealand, the best start. And I'm sure that Maurice Richardson would agree with that commitment. I'm sure that he would agree with the principle of giving every New Zealand child the best start. So that's an important package. Mr Speaker, I just want to conclude by looking at the state that the National-led government is in now. I remember John Key boasting about how he would provide New Zealand with a stable government. We've got the Māori Party, which has been roundly criticised by its own supporters for propping up a government that has done so much damage to Māori around New Zealand, and I know they themselves are very torn about that. They think they get more by being in coalition, but actually the price of that support is far too high in my view. The price of supporting damage to your own constituency is a price that I don't think should ever be paid. John Banks, up in court for forgetting that he got massive donations from Kim.com, who's a very big man, lives in a massive mansion with his wife, an extraordinary place. John Banks flew in a helicopter to have lunch with this very large German man with a really unusual name, got the cheque and then forgot it. Perhaps he does that quite regularly. I actually don't go out to lunch in a mansion in North Auckland to get a cheque from Kim.com very often, but perhaps John Banks does it so often he forgot about it. So this is another coalition partner, and now we've got John Key giving Peter Dunn back his job again today, the question and answer session in Parliament at 2 o'clock. provided very little relief about what Peter Dunn actually had as his involvement with the Kitteridge report, and John Key is now reneging on his previous criticism of Winston Peters and offering him a lifeline. This is not the stable government that we were promised. It's arrogant and out of touch.